All right. Okay, well, hello everyone. It is time for another bi-weekly community call. My name is Jennifer Britton. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Potentials Realized, and chances are you've met me before through my writing. As the author of several books on group and team coaching, this is one of the calls today where I wanted to bring to life some of the different techniques we might use in closing off on an engagement. And so really great to have you here, Kareem, today. When you think of
Yeah.
closing off a coaching engagement, what's something you like to do to just wrap things up, to wind things down?
Uh, I like to touch on summary, maybe a brief on what we've talked about,
Yeah,
and then I'd like to talk about next steps of moving forward. How, I would like to get their thoughts on how would they be moving forward with what we talked about.
great.
So
Yeah, and
kind
then
of
and
commitment, accountability.
yeah, and commitment. So I'm hearing commitment, accountability, next steps, and learning, right? Like what's the new awareness that's been created? And so I want to invite all of you, why, well, number one, why I wanted to do today's call is that we spend a lot of time thinking about the front end of coaching. Like, let's onboard a new client. Let's get this coaching conversation really structured with our focus on what do you want to focus on today? What's important about that? What will success look like? And are we spending as much time on the back end, which is where often the synthesis or that inquiry space actually happens? So that was the nexus of really coming with today's topic. We haven't done a demo for a while, so I brought some of my favorite tools and products from us here at Potentials Realized. So we're going to work with those today, Kareem. Is that good for you?
So yeah,
All right, so let us go into a couple of the past calls that we've done this spring because I think some of them are really relevant. I know I keep coming back to this one, but change was our topic in May, and this is continuing. Change is happening at a pace like never before. Think about the changes that are happening all around you right now. And so we're seeing it as humans. We're also hearing it from our clients. And change can activate a lot of things. It can activate resistance. It can activate sense of overwhelm. People can be excited about it. But I do want to invite you, if you don't feel that you have tools in your toolkit around change, one of our most recent community calls has been on this topic. You can head on over to youtube.com/effective group coach. And there you're going to see a couple of like many different videos. There's now over 400 that I've done in a 10+ year period, but definitely check out the one on change because I think if anything, this year is going to continue to ramp up in volume. So little heads up on that. The other piece that you might want to check out is, of course, our Coaching Many podcast. So for those that like to listen, Ivana Valet and I sat down recently. We just released episode 4, which is all about relationships and results, two key areas that we want to focus on in our coaching conversations. And as you'll hear us talk about in episode 4, chances are you might be or might have a bias one way or the other, right? Am I focusing more on what you need to do or who you need to know and who you need to activate with? I think a lot of us in a corporate arena these days still are very results focused. And it's important to recognize that there is sort of a downside to over leveraging results. And we're actually seeing that here in Canada. As I've been talking about a lot lately, the most recent research is showing that 42% of Canadian employees are burnt out. And what some of the research shows is that when we're not spending as much time not only renewing, but also building a web of relationships that we can lean into for support, we tend to over augment with our results. So that is one of the key messages you'll hear in episode 4. Definitely, if you're a coach of groups or teams, check it out on your favorite podcast player, or you can just type in Coaching Many Podcast and it will redirect you to our homepage where we put the audio and video of the latest episodes. Now, we'll be releasing episode number 5 next Tuesday, so stay tuned on that. So, how do we wrap up a coaching conversation? Well, A lot of that will depend on what are people focusing on. So I've spent some time in the last few weeks really doubling down with different mentor coaching groups, different also team coaching essentials groups, looking at how are we working with plans. And so one of the resources I tend to include in a lot of my later books, right at the back of the book, is a copy of this, the one-page plan. It probably looks pretty familiar because if you've been doing coaching for a while, you may have already been coaching around an individual development plan. And so really, I like to refer to this as the 5x5 matrix, where we get people to really identify what are their goals for the coaching process, how would they describe it, again, making sure that that plan is SMART, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, and hopefully also exciting, because if it's not exciting, chances of us doing it are pretty or are lower, let's put it that way, especially in a world of change. Now, in the one-page plans that I work with, I do really like to keep this element of key timelines. And a lot of my clients are finding a bit of a shift in the last couple of years in terms of how they're working. I don't know about any of you, and I'll check with you, Kareem, but a lot of my clients are moving into 90-day cycles. And so instead of just trying to look at the whole year, because things are happening so fast, their project timelines have actually been condensed down to a 3-month window. So even if it's a 3-month window, is this something you want done by end of July? Is it second week of August? Is it, a December project? It's quite interesting when you start looking at timelines, but those milestones are important. So to today's topic of closing off on either a coaching session or an entire coaching relationship, what are people noticing with their timelines? Are things shifting? Are they not? Who are they leveraging? What are the resources they need? And as we think about goal achievement specifically, what's going to help and hinder? What are those enablers and derailers? So I want to go back to you, Kareem, because you're with me live today. What are you noticing about, the time windows in goal achievement? Let's put it pretty broadly like that.
I mean, from experience, there are goals that require like a long time to achieve. It's a layered plan and more complicated. It's not a straightforward goal. And some goals are just straightforward. I want to lose maybe 20 pounds by July.
Mm-hmm.
So this is more like a straightforward, it's more difficult, but a straightforward goal. But their goals sometimes can be complicated and layered and has to be broken down into smaller goals. Where, for example, I want to reach an executive position by the end of the year. So this kind of the 3 months window, yes, and it needs more to take a certain course. It needs to kind of talk to other people. It needs to socialize, network, and
Mm-hmm.
everything else. So, but I agree with you on terms of, working in tighter compartments of smaller windows are more effective than having a loose 1 year plan to achieve a goal or more than 3 months.
And it's interesting too when we think about how do we concretize planning, right? Do we do something like analog like this? Are we using something on our phone? Like a lot of this is preferences as well. How do we like it? But I think as coaches, we want to encourage our clients to create a structure or structures that work for them so that it's visible, it's relevant, it's living and breathing. And so I really just, for this purposes of this call, wanted to get you thinking about when was the last time you, as a coach or a business owner, sat down and created your own one-page plan. Many of you were with me a month ago as I did the Q2 review for the Coaching Business Builder, which is actually a workbook planner that I published in 2018. We just celebrated our fifth, sixth anniversary of that book. And, I'm always amazed, like people will take these milestone moments like end of Q1, end of Q2, do the planning, but not refer back to it. And so to something we touched on a few minutes ago, how are you revisiting that? How are you even asking at the end of a coaching conversation, when's the last time you pulled out your plans? Have you taken time in between our coaching touch points to be reflecting and reviewing? And keeping it visible. And I always look over here because just outside of my screen, I have my quarterly goals and my main quarterly rocks for this business. Because if I'm not keeping it visible even in a 3-month period, it's very easy to get off course. And so as coaches, we may not be having or spending all of our time on planning, but I think there's an opportunity to ask that question, whether you're working with an individual, a group, or a team. Anything you want to add, Kareem, before I take us in a different direction beyond the
No, I
one-page
like the
plan?
structure around that. No, thank you. No, definitely, and I agree with you. I'm definitely working in tighter compartments to achieve the goals is can be more effective than just kind of going with bigger time frames.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so I want to tie this back to how we experience the world. Some people are very goal centric, others aren't. And so just keep in mind that even a goal isn't always a doing goal. It can be that being goal, as we talked about recently. It could be something like I'm working on being more patient. Yeah, I am working on, being more creative, right? Whatever, or more grateful. So there can be goals that are less about doing and more about being as well. Now, if you have a copy of not Effective Group Coaching, Effective Virtual Conversations, Reconnecting Workspaces, Plan, Do, Track, or Coaching Business Builder, if you flip to the back of those books, you're going to see a copy of this one-page plan in different formats. It's really the same 5x5 matrix. And why I like to work with 5 is that it's a good number to create a stretch, but probably not too much of a stretch. It's more than just one. And in running a business, running a team, it does provide for enough space to have a focus that we can remember. So you could update this monthly, quarterly, annually. Again, think about what's going to support you. But part of closing a coaching conversation, hopefully, is where are you going to be anchoring your next steps, right? Where is it going? And how is it tying back into your bigger agenda items, your bigger 30,000-foot view? Because I think sometimes in today's world of change, our clients are coming to conversations, they're in the throes of whatever whiplash is happening for the day, and they're not making the connection to the bigger plan of their life, their work, their family, their livelihood. And so as a coach, right, how do we hold the space for that link? Even asking, how does what we've talked about today link with your 2024 vision or your 2024 plans, for example? All right.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit. And the way we approach it is probably going to be dependent on your style. So Kareem, I don't know if you've taken the superpower quiz, but this is a different piece of work that I've been doing for a few years. As a coach trainer, I've seen that there are so many different ways that we could be coaching folks, yet are we using all of them? And part of mastery as a coach is to expand our range. And so we are getting closer to the official launch of the Superpower deck, which is going to be available to you on your phone. Because one of the other things that's changing in the world of change is how fast things are happening. So the Activate program is actually a piece of research I've been doing for the last 2 years, inviting coaches to participate in this online quiz to see what is their primary, secondary, tertiary coaching style. I won't go into the full framework because that's really the purpose of the deck, but we want to cultivate all 4 of these. So personally, I am the purple, which represents a creative tool master. I love the different tools, products, ideas, things that I can draw upon in a coaching conversation. And I think for me, it does serve me as a coach of many, right? Because chances are in the groups that I work with, there's a wide variety of interest areas. That approach of that approach of a creative tool master is a little different than the ecosystem connector, the green one. And what's interesting is in our research, we're finding a lot of coaches really leading from that systemic framework. So systemic is the frame, but how I see it in my work is these are coaches who lean into both an ecosystem perspective and a connector perspective. So naturally, they're seeing the bridges and helping their clients see bridges. in their work as coaches, they're helping clients look outside of themselves to see what and who can I connect in with in the greater scheme, whether it's a stakeholder, whether it's another team member, etc. And so we tend to, in our coach development, get into our ruts. We do what we like to do. And the notion here with not only the deck, but the quiz and the associated 14 CCE program is to help coaches think about what are you doing too much of, and how do you tend to do a little bit more of all of these. And so I'm really excited to really move this quiz into further, I guess, reach for people, because in the next week or so, the Deckable app testing is going to be finished, and we're going to be able to have you working on your phones with a daily prompt, a daily invitation. How might you incorporate more of the grounded labyrinth? Are you working with your clients around somatic approaches? Or maybe today you need to be more of that catalytic firecracker, bold and, out at the 30,000-foot view. So I will do a demo call that is separate to this, and stay tuned. Once we get out of app testing, I'll be doing a series of reels so that you can see what it looks like on your phone, because it is going to be a great opportunity for coaches to really be thinking about, how do I continue to expand my range? That truly is the number one principle of coaching many. We want to expand our range. So, Kareem, how is this connecting with you? Are you excited about hearing more about this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Very, very creative. I think having an app on our phones is something, instead of scrolling and looking at other things that could be waste of time. This, for people who are serious about their growing their coaching practice and mindset, this could be very helpful to
Yeah.
kind of, fall back on it and just glance at your phone and see something that is meaningful and and it's related to our growth as coaches.
Yeah. And many of you have to go through mentor coaching, right? Once every 3 years. But my hope is that this is something that will be with you, right? And just as you said, we always have our phones. And so I think as a learning professional as well, the way we want to help people engage and pause and reflect is also changing. And what excites me about the Deckable app, so it's a whole space which has taken physical cards, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, and put it in a digital space. The beauty of it, though, is on Deckable, you can do meditations. You can set a timer to meditate on a card. You can also journal. So if you're journaling through the app, you're going to be able to see your progress. You're going to be able to see how your reflections change, shift, grow, evolve over time. And I think, to today's topic, this is why I wanted to continue to talk about this, because part of closing off on coaching is about building capability with our clients, right? We don't work with people for 15 years at a time, maybe, but is that creating dependency or independency? And so I think really we can be looking at how might in the digital space, we use apps to really keep those muscles growing and building and strengthening. So stay tuned for the Activate deck, which is, as I said, I think we're within probably the next few days. It'll be out of app testing, because it's been app tested for about a week and they're not finding a lot, which is good. So the final piece, I wanted to leave us with 3 different types of wrap-up questioning. So we talked even in the Deckable about journaling. And I think journaling is an area that I know at least my clients who are leaders or writers, obviously writers like that, but I just want to invite people to think about, are you incorporating journaling? And I was reminded of a book that was released a few years ago. I was a contributing author, but not the lead author on it. But it was done by one of my great colleagues, Linda Monk, who is the head of the International Association of Journaling. And Linda partnered with someone else to bring 42 of us together to talk about how we use journaling as coaches. I think journaling in today's fast world is underutilized. Again, journaling can look like many things. It can be, physical, journal like this. It can be digital, as I shared on the Deckable app. I've been experimenting with Deckable since last October, actually. And I was first introduced to it as part of a 30-day challenge on video. Some of you have seen me through the Coaching Short series, which is a 60-day video series on how to just do something quick with your clients. And actually, it was through that sort of mentorship that I got from two of my great mentors, Rosie and totally blanking out on names, but anyways, they use Deckable. And I was like, this is so interesting. That was only October of last fall. And I was like, I wonder if there is a way to take some of my intellectual property and bring it to it. So I've mentioned just the Activate deck, but the second deck very close behind it is one for onboarding. And onboarding in the world today is also a key passion project of mine for the last 30 years. The 90-day guide for success is going into app form as well. And part of that is to help people in their first 90 days of a job or in a 90-day sprint to have these moments to journal, to reflect, to pause. And my hope is that it's going to be providing a new opportunity to look at things. So while I take a sip of water, Kareem, which one do you want to go to next?
Journaling piqued my curiosity, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. How do you currently incorporate journaling into your work, or do you?
I don't actually, and that's why I'm kind of curious about, I mean, what is, how does it fit in the scheme of things,
Yeah.
journaling?
So a couple of different options. One of the things I do in my content creation. So I've hosted a blog for leaders for the last 11 years. It's called the Teams 365 blog, named before Microsoft came out with their name, but I kept the name without any legal repercussions. But one of the things I've done every Saturday for the last 5, 6 years in that blog series, excuse me, is have a weekly journaling prompt. And so there are leaders who follow me that use that Saturday writing opportunity as a journaling experience. So on their own, they take a look, like it could be this week's journaling prompt is about renewal, right? I do a lot around renewal in the summer because it's the time where we can downshift. And so there's often a quote and then a few prompting questions for people to set a timer or just free flow journal. Again, I tend to work with a lot of writers. They may not be professional writers, but they may be grant writers. They may be people who are, creating reports. They may be in marketing. They may be in fundraising. And so journaling, I think, is a natural extension of the way they process the world. They're less about talking, more about writing. And so it's interesting. I have one client who's worked with me off and on for about a decade. She comes and she goes, and she is a journaler. Every time we start new work, she's like, I've got to share with you, Jen, how many new booklets I've created, because she has a very specific name, which I won't go into what her name is, just because that might be a little discerning. But she, like, literally, she spends an hour every morning journaling. And so when I work with her, I know that it's important that we spend a little bit of time getting her to think about, what are you noticing in those journal entries? What are the bridges? What are the patterns? And it's just yet another resource. So there may be an opportunity in your individual group coaching work to build in some journaling, whether it's structured or not, and then using that as another springboard for new awareness, right? It's an awareness tool, not necessarily an action tool, which is why I like it. So let me pass this back to you, Kareem. What have you seen, or how have you seen journaling in the past in your work?
Um, I'm not a big journaling person, but my wife is, and I see how you're talking about this. She wakes up in the morning and she processes her thoughts and she writes down. I'd like to get into it more. It just sometimes I'm more visual. I'm more
Yeah.
the way I process things is maybe just talking about it as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
kind of writing it down. I experimented one time with journaling and I find it very effective because in a way it's like the glue of what you're thinking. It's basically you get it out. It just once you connect your thought process with your hand and holding the pen and start writing, then things could start happening. Yeah, I'm always open to dabble with that practice.
Yeah.
So
Well, here's what you might have at your availability when the new app comes out for the superpowers. There is, as I said, a digital journal. So every card has a short video attached to it where I provide an inquiry as well. And people can then journal on their phone, or for me, I don't like to use my phone. It's too small. I will probably create a new journal, right? And use it in order to, just as you said, like today's inquiry is pause. Okay, what does pause mean for me? How can I incorporate that? What are my opportunities? Thing with journaling is it doesn't have to take half an hour, right? A lot of the work that I do in one of our most popular programs, which is the Coaching Biz Growth Lab, a bi-weekly group that meets throughout the year, we do 2.5 minute journaling prompts throughout our work together. So there's talking, there's also a lot of reflection, because as business owners, we're not pausing long enough to really think about what's going on. It's like you step into the office, or even you step outside of the office, and it's one crisis after another. So even as a coach in real-time work as a group coach, I really like to encourage people to have their journal. And even if we only have 2 or 3 prompts, that's just something that we can take away physically to a next time. And given that we've got, over the course of 52 weeks, 12 months, we've got 24 group calls. And so every group call has one or more prompts, which over the course of the year, as we saw now in July, your journals are getting full. You can go back and you can start seeing patterns. You can start seeing like these like little tendrils of new themes emerging as well over time. So it's
mm,
yet another piece that I wanted to sort of spotlight today, because I often talk about visuals. I often talk about metaphors. I won't be doing that today. And I brought a closing exercise for us to do. But before I go to the closing exercise, anything you want to mention now about journaling or inquiry question you have?
no, I think you know what, you explained very well, and you got me, curious to start it again, to kind of to try to take another stab at it and see how can I get better at it.
Yeah. Well, again, it's an opportune time of the year to experiment. What if you, for the next 30 days, looked at journaling, even if, and it doesn't have to be always written. This is where my love affair with icons comes in. So the second project I've been working on for the last 3 months is taking the 90-day guide for success, which some of you are aware of. It's one of the book 2 in Reconnecting Workspaces series, but it's a guide for onboarding and reboarding. And in publishing that book, every day had different icons. So for the last 3 years, I've been thinking about how do I use the icons to spark conversations. The first product out were the Reconnecting Workspaces dice. And I've brought 5 dice that we're going to work with today to provide a bit of a journal prompt and a closure exercise. And the dice are nice, but they're not enough. It's hard to ship people dice. People don't want to pay for the printing. So guess what's coming as app number 2 on Deckable? It's going to be the 90-day guide. And I'm breaking it down into 3 30-day sprints. So you don't just have to be onboarding in a new role. You could be an entrepreneur in your 20th year of business needing a bit of a booster shot. Every day you'll have the opportunity to pull 1, 2, or 3 cards. So one card is, what's today's focus? Today's focus could be prioritization. So what is prioritization? Second card is, so what's important about prioritization for you, for others? And then the third card of the day is going to be a quote. How does a quote connect? So again, in Deckable, when that deck is live, which is probably 2 weeks out, maybe, we'll have journaling opportunities, meditation opportunities, but also the opportunity of an icon. So for someone like you, Kareem, I think you're going to have fun with this closing exercise. So we could say a lot more on closing out conversations, but as you know, most coaching conversations come to an end too quickly. And that's where having a quick exercise like we're going to do right now is great to help synthesize thinking. So normally in the dice set, there are 5 dice. I'm going to keep it simple by just removing 2 and leaving us with 3. So Kareem, you get to say when, and that will prompt me to just roll the dice.
Okay, when?
Okay, so I've rolled the dice, and here's maybe the invitation. I've got 3 icons in front of me. I want you to just make up a story or take the next minute and a half to write out what's important about these. So the first one actually comes from day 91 of the book, and that's the question of what's next. That represents what's
Oh,
next. So draw it out. Kareem, you said you like to draw. Do you want to take a moment to grab your pen,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
draw it out? And this is an invitation for everyone on the call listening live or otherwise. Grab a piece of
Yeah.
paper, draw out number 1 because I grabbed 3 dice. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the eyeball, and that represents focus and attention. Okay, so this is focus and attention, or it could mean something else to you.
Okay.
And our third one are the clocks. So maybe you
Oh, the
work
clocks.
clocks. So maybe you work globally and this has resonance, or maybe it just represents like, when am I at my best? Circadian rhythm. I'm going
Okay.
to give everyone 90 seconds. I'm going to start my timer, make up a story, or just journal on what's important about these 3 items for you today. All right. So at the end of a conversation would not be complete without 1 or 2 words around what was important about you attending today's call. Or in other words, what are you taking away? That's a different way of spinning it. So Kareem, do you want
I
to
like,
share?
yeah, I like the last exercise. It's fun actually, and it kind of gives me new ideas and thoughts in terms of, okay, I got the next steps, focus, attention, and clocks, and the circadian rhythm. So it's kind of, in a way, if I put it all together, it just tells me about, if I focus on my attention on my next steps and have a deep understanding of my circadian rhythm and where my energy lies and where am I most energetic, then things start to happen. Things start moving in the right direction. So I really enjoyed that exercise. And going back to your question, I mean, this is really fun, and it's kind of really, it opens kind of give
New
lots of things
doors.
come up. Yeah, exactly, new doors for us. So I kind of jotted something quick like here, but the whole session. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the session today, and I kind of opened my eyes to maybe should try journaling again, give it another shot, and see how far I can get with that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
other than that, I'm very excited about the app, and I think it would come in handy for my coaching practice too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, we all need a little prompt, whether it's a creative spark like the Reconnecting Workspaces dice, which if anyone can knows of a great dice printer, let me know. This has been a project on the side burner for the last 3 years. And every time I bring it to people, they're like, this is really great. So that's going to be after the app. So stay tuned. We are back in a few weeks for our next call. You'll have to go to our summer schedule, which I put up on LinkedIn every once in a while. But thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you soon. All right,
Thank you,
take it
Jennifer.
easy, Kareem. Be well.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah,
Bye.
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 Bye, everyone.